The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has accused China of interfering in democracy. A parliamentary researcher was arrested in March, accused of spying for China. That's a claim he's denied and that China says is a fabrication. MPs have called for the government to take stronger action. Our political editor Chris Mason has the latest.
China, a modern colossus, a booming economy and society reshaping the world, with a worldview so very different from the UK's. So how should the UK deal with China? And how should it react to the arrest of a parliamentary researcher amid claims of spying for China in Westminster?
The sanctity of this place must be protected, and the right of members to speak their minds without fear or sanction must be maintained. We will defend our democracy and our security.
The news of the arrest of a researcher here in Parliament on suspicion of spying for China is a serious breach of security conducted by the Beijing security services.
There was, the government said, a constant vigilance to root out interference. But there are some well-known names that are simply not convinced.
What we need to do is to recognise that China is the largest threat, both to the world and to the United Kingdom, for freedom and democracy. And does he not agree that the government should designate it as such?
The problem lies in the mess we've got into over what we define China as with respect to us. Are they a threat? Or are they not? If they are a threat, why do we not call them a threat and take the relative action that is necessary to deal with them on that basis and sanction some people?
The man at the heart of all of this, arrested back in March, released a statement today. He said, "It is vital that it is known that I am completely innocent. I have spent my career to date trying to educate others about the challenge and threats presented by the Chinese Communist Party. To do what has been claimed against me in extravagant news reporting would be against everything I stand for." The BBC isn't naming this man. He hasn't been charged with anything, and it's not known precisely what he's been accused of. As for the government, it insists it's getting the balance right in its dealings with China, and its approach is in line with allies such as America and Australia. Here is what they make of all of this in Beijing.
The allegation that China is conducting espionage activities against the UK is pure fabrication. China resolutely opposes this. We urge the UK to stop spreading disinformation and stop its anti-China political manipulation and malicious slander.
Tonight, two debates rage at Westminster: how to make this place secure and how to deal with China, a country whose power and influence grows and grows. Chris Mason, BBC News.
Well, live now to our guest Isabel Hilton. She's a visiting professor at the Lau Institute, King's College London, and founder of the non-profit organisation China Dialogue. Isabel, hello to you. Thank you very much for joining us. We've just heard Chris Mason asking that question, the question that people are asking: how to deal with China.
Well, we can describe China as a threat and swear never to have anything to do with it, but that doesn't make it go away. That's a bit like a toddler, who puts his hands before his eyes and imagine that you can't see him. And it's not like that. China is the second largest economy in the world. We are deeply intertwined in terms of our supply chains, in terms of trade, as a result of policy pursued by this same government over many decades. And so, it's all very well to say China is a threat, and in some ways China does threaten liberal democratic values. These are very well known, but we have to find a way of dealing with it rather than simply denouncing it or grandstanding.
As you say, Isabel, it's not so long ago that the Conservative Party in particular was talking about a golden era of UK-China relations. So why what's gone wrong? Why has the relationship seemed to have broken down to this extent?
Well, it is the same Conservative Party after all, and we've lurched from the golden era to scary China without really stopping for much thought in between. And this is largely political, it seems to me, that in the Cameron-Osborne era, they were very keen to have Chinese investments in the United Kingdom, to the point where they sanctioned the idea that China should build and operate nuclear power plants here, or install Huawei 5G, which is part of our critical infrastructure. There has been a pushback from those, I think quite rightly. Those were not prudent. But to rush in the opposite direction without really developing the kind of sensible triage that we see, for example, in the European Commission's approach, where the approach is to say we will cooperate and trade where we can, we will confront where we must, and we do recognize that China is intrinsic. The system, it's a systemic rival to Western liberal democracies. That is true. Our challenge is to deal with it, to contain our differences, to manage our differences, and to keep the relationship reasonably stable.
And how would you characterize the relationship at the moment?
Well, at the moment, it's not great. I mean, I don't think it hugely matters to China since Britain left the European Union. China's concerned with two big blocs, the European Union and the United States, and it is concerned largely with establishing its leadership in the emerging economies. So Britain, as a small market and a country that's seen largely as a close ally of the United States in security terms, I think, is not, frankly, China's prime concern. And the official reaction to these allegations was pretty much what I'd expect. But I would also point out that there is a huge amount of noise around a case which is, as Chris pointed out, that there are no charges. The man was released on police bail in March, clearly not considered by the police either to be a flight risk or a major security threat. And we just don't know what the charges are or what the evidence is. And yet we have this enormous political brouhaha going on amongst a group of MPs who are noted for their hostility to China. So I think it's a lot of very loud noise, and at the moment, not very much substance.
OK, Isabel Hilton, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for sharing your thoughts this evening. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.